there is talk about Indian football, which probably wasn't there when we were younger. A lot of clubs are doing well as well. If you look at Bangalore, Chennai, Kerala, like they managed to sell almost every spot on their jersey year in and year out.
What was your experience like of playing football in the UK and then playing back here, obviously, as well?
Like my toes were frozen when I had to go take this corner kick, and I was like, I'm pretty sure I'll break my toes if I try and kick it. I wouldn't say that they have more talent than the Indian footballers. It's just that they are given a lot more facilities that we are not. Who is growing
Hiba,
up.
you've become my favorite football coach now that you said
Boys at least have youth leagues, right? From the age of like under 8, under 10, under 12, under 14, under 16. In women's, we don't have any age categories. What India needs is probably a proper player pathway.
It's not a movie. You can't do $1 million arm for football.
Okay, serious questions now.
Hi guys, welcome back to All About Sports, the podcast, and we are back again with a brand new episode. You're joined by a regular co-host, Rishabh, Mazhar, Aniket, and myself, Shubham. But today we have a very special guest with us. We have Hiba Faquih. Hiba, now to quickly give all the viewers and listeners an introduction about Hiba. She is currently in sponsorship executive at a leading sports broadcasting company. She has done sponsorship she was a sponsorship manager at the ICC Cricket World Cup. Was an assistant football coach at Diago Junior Football Academy, former marketing and media intern at Pune FC. She's done her master's in sports administration management at Loughborough University and holds an AFC-C license and AIFF D license in football. Hiba, that's very impressive. That's a very impressive resume that you have there in terms of your academics, your certifications, and obviously your work experience. So I'll jump straight into it. I have done my undergrad in sports management. I did it from Coventry University. We know Mazhar is also going to pursue his master's in sports management. So my question to you is, what got you excited in sports and what made you decide that, hey, this is the career I want to take up and this is the master's I want to pursue? So what was that like, that germ, that the idea that got in your head and you were like, this is what you want to do?
So I think when I just started off, it was because of my passion for playing football. And I genuinely just wanted to continue playing earlier. I hadn't thought too much about working in the industry or anything of that sort. I just enjoyed the sport and continued playing it. And at one point when you had to make your career decision and career choices, I think at that point, it just seemed like the obvious next step. And also, I think the first experience where I felt the need for more people to study sport management and be in the administration field is when I went for my first school nationals. So I was in the 9th grade at that time, and the conditions were just so bad. And it was really like we were just under 17 at that time, and we played our first school nationals, and the facilities were really below poor as well. And I think at that point, I felt like there has to be some way to make a difference. So I think the main aim is to kind of try and make a difference towards the sport management in India, and especially towards the women's side of sport.
So did you play football professionally?
So in India, women's football is not really professional. I've played at the highest level possible in India, which is the IWL, the national league, which is called the Indian Women's League. But it's not throughout the year. So you have to kind of do something else other than just playing football. I think in a lot of countries, it's still semi-professional. And in India as well, it's a semi-professional sport.
You know, one thing which I find like really cool about what you've done is your football license that you have. So I have, for me, this is personally like, I think my first ever interaction with a person who has an AIFF and AFC license. So I think that's really cool. And for all our viewers and listeners, like, can you give them an insight into what is the process of obtaining the license? And once you obtain the license, what are the sort of roles you can apply for, or you can like possibly work in?
So yeah, you start with a AIFFD license. That's the first license that you're supposed to acquire. I think in a lot of states, they've also introduced an E license, which is new. It wasn't there when I first did my D license. So it's a very, E as well as D is a very basic course where it's more about theory, and if you play the sport, then it's quite easy to obtain. They usually pass almost everyone who has a little bit of football knowledge and is able to, do a little bit of the practical side as well as the theory. So there are two parts, obviously, the theory and the practical, but the practical is very basic for the D license at least. And that would be the first step. Every state association has these courses. If you look on the website, or probably on the AIFF website as well, they do give out the dates for when they're going to have the courses. You'll have to start with a D license, which is a 5-day course. And it's pretty quick. You just have to do 5 days of the module, and then you give an exam in the end, which is one practical and one theory, and then you get your results in a month or so. And after you've practiced a little bit of coaching, at this point for the D license, you don't need prior experience, but for a C license, you need a little bit of experience, and the practical is a bit more tougher. The lesson plans and the theory part is still doable. It's not that difficult, but I think for the practical, if you don't have the experience in coaching, it's a bit difficult. So ideally like a year and a half of experience, and then applying for a C license. After the C, there's a B and an A as well. But again, you need to finish like certain amount of coaching before you apply for B, and then A similarly.
So once you got your D license, at what level were you allowed to coach, or you're eligible to coach at?
So a lot of academies, as well as soccer schools, don't have a requirement as such. Like you can coach with a D license, or you can coach even without a license if you have the knowledge. But I think at the higher levels of clubs, you do require a minimum license. And usually for like ISL, I-League, the top tier clubs, you require at least you need like an A license. And maybe for an assistant coach or for the national women's team, C license works. So with the C license, I could coach the national team. By national, I mean the state team, not India.
No, I think all of us look forward to seeing you become a coach, hopefully for the Indian women's team.
Just to put this out there, I think you are the first person who has coached someone with a coaching license. Like most coaches, don't have any form of license. They're just there. Magically, they have been there for 8 years. So I'm like,
No.
okay.
The prep for this call is the first time I knew about the license, to be honest. I didn't know about this licensing process, to be honest. So this is good to know and learn about it.
I remember when I used to play as well, there were barely any people that actually had a license. Like my own head coaches didn't have any license. But it's changed a lot, like in the past few years, and recently with ISL becoming so big, and the requirement for those top tier teams, it's just pushing people to start with courses. Also, they're more readily available now. I think the number of courses that are happening has increased, so it's easier to get it.
Which actually reminds me and brings me back to what Gui mentioned about the coaches, the first coach that we've met who actually has a license. And it reminds me of the previous episode where he had done with Zohaib Khan. And in that, he mentioned that one of his coaches said, have some farsan because he was cramping up and at halftime. So we definitely needed this. Especially the practical aspect. Because how can you offer someone farsan when they're cramping? Like there's no logic to it. So it just brought me back to that.
Offering farsan to an athlete in itself is a crime, but okay, we'll let that one slide. So Hiba, actually, my question was slightly different to do with what you work in, which is sponsorship, right? So
Yeah.
my question was, you have had like an insight into what the sponsorship world is like, which, well, to be honest, kind of is in the background for most people who are following sports. I mean, at the age of 13, 14, 15, you are not really aware that a lot of money has to be put in to make an event successful. So I wanted to throw some light on if there is of course, there is a slight difference in attitude towards all of the sports in terms of how companies would want to or not want to sponsor an event. But is it very evident when you are trying to garner sponsorship? Do you see it happen very regularly? Like brands would very upfront tell you that no, listen, we're not sponsoring XYZ sport. We are willing to sponsor, say, A and B.
Yeah, for sure. Like, I think in India, obviously, it's cricket over any other sport. Not even cricket and football. It's cricket, which is a different league altogether. And like all cricket leagues practically sell themselves. You don't really need to try very hard. It's more about negotiation when it comes to cricket, like how much you would actually close the deal on. But it's not difficult to get a sponsor to invest. It's just how much money you can get from that sponsor. So cricket, like obviously because of the viewership and how big the sport is in our country, it's very easy to, get sponsors. And almost anyone who has a little bit of budget for sponsorship in sport wants to spend it on cricket. But yeah, like there are other sports which now a lot of companies are looking at investing in, but it's not in the same league as cricket. But then that would be like football, and kabaddi is doing pretty well as well. The last few years it had grown a lot, and there were a lot of sponsors that wanted to invest in kabaddi, and the market was kind of different for kabaddi. It's more of rural India and that kind of stuff. So there are companies that want to target that market. So they do invest in kabaddi and other sports, but it's not the same as the investment we get in
So
cricket.
Hiba, are you saying that a T10 cricket league is higher on the priority list than, say, a badminton league?
It's not fair to compare the two, but by cricket I meant like probably an IPL and in general the professional cricket leagues and probably India matches and things like that. I think the state leagues that have just started off, like Karnataka and Tamil Nadu and all, have started their own state premier leagues as well. So those aren't doing as well as probably an IPL, and they're still struggling to get sponsors because it comes down to viewership at the end of the day. So as a sport in total, I would say definitely cricket over a badminton or any other sport like that.
And another thing, I'm so sorry, guys. I'm just trying to follow up that question because, again, most young kids who follow a sport don't really know that sponsorship is super key in making an event happen. So I want to know if you've ever faced a situation where a sponsor's backed out, very deep into the planning, and that's had like an immediate impact on the event. Like, it may not be a cancellation, but you know that the facilities are now not as stocked as they should be, or you're playing in a different stadium or a different area. You're playing with slightly less in the reserve tank for spending on certain additional marketing activities. But how do you think that impacts the event?
So maybe not at a very high level, but at definitely smaller leagues and private leagues and college tournaments. And I've worked in helping and organizing all these as well. So it would definitely have an immediate impact there because your whole budget for the event comes through sponsorship money. So in such a case, if you had a sponsor pull out last minute, then it would definitely affect your expenses. But at a higher level where you kind of have the league running despite of the sponsors, so you do go into a loss if you don't get that sponsor, but you'd still have the league happening as you had planned it. But sure, it would make a difference at the end of the day if a sponsor which is giving you like a high amount of money does back out. At the same time, other than the monetary value, we also have like a lot of barter deals along with the money that comes in. So say a pouring partner backed out or something like that. So we've had cases where you expect to get a partner, and then when you don't close it, and usually most of the signings happen just before the league starts. So you are kind of hopeful till the very end, and then when it doesn't happen, you just realize that there's a lot more expenses that you have to take into account that you didn't.
I was thinking about it, how drastically it would impact if you don't have a plan B. That event is gone for a toss.
Yeah, for sure. Like
And
you have to take into account the fact that it is possible that you might not get that money.
No, Eva, this completely makes sense. And sorry to keep harping on the kind of money front. I did have a slightly different question. I guess more specifically to Indian football, since I'm sure you're super passionate about the football scene in India, as well as I'm sure globally as well. But I did want to ask you, we have this conversation a little bit about the kind of circular nature of sponsorship, right? We kind of say like, in order to get more eyeballs, you need more money. So that's more exciting viewership. Maybe you can get in, bigger players, and then the more money will come in. So it's kind of like a circular loop that we kind of have. I did want to ask, from the context of Indian football, how you see, if you have any insight into how teams are doing, with the ISL coming in, kind of this new format that is with ISL and the I League. We do know that some Indian football teams kind of struggle. We've seen historically like some I League teams have to kind of drop in and out depending on how much they're able to pay. Are you seeing more of an excitement or investment in ISL and I League sponsors being more likely to maybe come on? We've seen a little bit more celebrity, but is there more genuine excitement to chip in with it? I understand it's not at the same scale as IPL, but is there some positivity in that area, or is it just like famous people there, but maybe not so much sponsorships?
No, for sure. Like a lot of clubs are doing well as well. So if you look at Bangalore, Chennai, Kerala, like they manage to sell almost every spot on their jersey year in and year out. And they do have a lot of local companies as well that want to, invest, whether it's barter deals or just jersey sponsorships or whatever kind of sponsorships they're doing. So it's definitely grown a lot over the last few years, and especially since the introduction of ISL, because like you mentioned, it's a whole cycle. So what happened with ISL coming in was they did have that money finally to invest into, Indian football, which we didn't have probably before that. So a lot of people might argue that it is very commercial and, it's not very authentic football. Like you said, you put in player money, you get players from abroad, and you get those, and that's how you get the money into the sport. So you get your sponsors and you increase your eyeballs. So I think it has worked really well. And there's definitely been an improvement in the last few years in terms of interest from sponsors. And in general, like I think you can also look around and realize that there is talk about Indian football, which probably wasn't there when we were younger. We didn't know that the Indian football team was playing particular matches, or just in terms of awareness as well. I think it has helped.
The only memory I have from school of Indian football is a lot of like some Mohan Bagan. I always remember being excited about, but barring that, I can't remember tracking Indian football super closely. So I can completely sympathize that ISL brought in a bit more excitement at the very least, and so hopefully a few more eyeballs.
Yeah. So Hiba, I wanted to come back to your strong suit per se, women's football. What has been, firstly, what was your experience like of playing football in the UK and then playing back here, obviously, as well? And how would you, let's say, compare the two, and how far off is India in terms of, let's say, not only in terms of facilities, the amount of money being pumped in, but also in terms of skill levels and just the competition in general in both the countries?
So I did play for my university team while I was in Loughborough. They had 4 women's teams which played in different divisions. I played in the second division, and just like from the moment I reached the campus and I realized that there were 4 women's teams, it was just overwhelming right from then. And here where you struggle to get like one team in like a school of 2,000 girls, it's like such a good change. And at the same time, it made me really nervous because I was like, oh my God, now I've played at such a high level in India. And what if I come here and, like I don't even make it to the team? Because you've heard all this about how the level of football is so much better. And obviously they've started playing since they were much younger. I started playing only when I was like 14. So I think that's a pretty late start for a footballer, as most people would say. But yeah, I did manage to make it to the second team and I did play at the second division. So I think in terms of skill, of course, there's a lot of difference because they prioritize a lot of things, say like gym sessions, nutrition, and those aspects that we are lacking in. But without all that, I think in terms of the talent that we have in both the countries would be at a similar level. I wouldn't say that they have more talent than the Indian footballers. It's just that they are given a lot more facilities that we are not. So it does practically come down to that. Also, they start playing at such a young age. So one is having competitive matches all the time, right from when you're in school, playing with boys while you're growing up. all that makes a lot of difference to the skill. But at the end of the day, I think if you take Indian footballers and give them the same, facilities and the same kind of nutrition as well as gym sessions and all that while they are growing up as well, I think in terms of skill and talent, I think they would be at the same level. But definitely the experience of playing there was very different. I really enjoyed it. I was very nervous in the start, and it probably affected my performance as well, because I was so like conscious all the time about like how I'm playing at this level and how everyone, is probably better than you are. And also adapting to the cold climate was very difficult for me. I remember I'd just gone back, and I think 3 or 4 days into reaching Loughborough, I had my trials, and I was freezing. It was like early in the morning, and I was like, had all layers possible on. I had my gloves, I had tights, I had like a sweatshirt, and everyone's just there so casually, and like they take off their sweatshirts before warm up, and I'm like, I can't do this. Like my toes were frozen when I had to go take this corner kick, and I was like, I'm pretty sure I'll break my toes if I try and kick it. So it did take some adapting and getting used to, but overall, I think the season was great. And I love the format. And like I mentioned, they have divisions even when it comes to university football. Here in India, we don't even have youth leagues. Like the National League is only for an open category. Boys at least have youth leagues, right? From the age of like under 8, under 10, under 12, under 14, under 16. In women's, we don't have any age categories. All district tournaments and all are open. You don't have youth leagues for IWL. You don't have youth leagues at any level, probably just school tournaments. And then, when you're playing or representing your state, then you have the youth leagues, but it's not a club. There's no like club football as such for girls. So the player pathway, I think, for girls is very different. Like there's a big gap. Boys at least have that opportunity. So here, if you are in a school which doesn't have a women's football team, like what are you going to take part in? Just probably a district or a nationals, which comes once in the year. And like we know, the camps aren't very long. The training isn't that great. So there's a lot of individual work that you'll have to do. So I think that was one major gap that I see. Also, like, they have so many teams and so many divisions. So divisions are far off. Here, I think like first what India needs is probably a proper player pathway with a lot of youth leagues, for the girls. So right from when they're growing up to, doesn't matter which school they're in or college they're in, they should have the opportunity to continue playing. There should be like a proper progression. And I think even they had like this whole home and away format while I was in UK. So coming back to that was definitely a great experience. Like every Wednesday is a Bucks game, which is the university game. So every Wednesday you have a game, and it's in a home and away format. So you travel to different universities that are in the same division. And there are no lectures that happen on Wednesday usually, because it is the day for like sport for all universities. And I think just that whole culture is so great. Like no matter what sport you play, most of them happen, like they have specific days for which sport you play. So you go to that university and they host you for that particular game. And every university there has like great facilities, and obviously they all vary. Like some might have a great pitch, some might have like a great dressing room, and all those things were very foreign to me, because I mean the only thing that we play is probably like once a year, and it's AIFF or the state that puts you up. So obviously the money there is more, but it's set up right from the beginning. So that home and away format of playing was also a lot of fun. Like I enjoyed it thoroughly, like going as a team in the team bus to another district, another county, city, playing there, and then traveling back after the game as a team. It was definitely great.
Hiba, I think it's time for me to switch my campus. I think it's time for me to switch my campus for sure. But this was really insightful, Hiba. Awesome. Just one more question to add to this. Don't you think, considering the fact that, you said we have the talent, and yes, we lack in terms of course, climate is a big factor as well. We're not used to that weather, and these people walk in their shorts and half sleeves, and they're like, as if there's like no problem in that pouring rain also at times. And we all know how UK weather is. But coming back to that, don't you think that this is a great opportunity for maybe scouts to come in and find these Indian women's players, find some funding for them and send them to play in some of the European leagues there, like try, at least go for those tryouts, maybe have those 3-month trials, and where they can potentially, you know, make it. Don't you think that that would be another great avenue going forward for women's football as well, if it can't develop at the grassroots level?
Yeah, for sure. But that's what I'm saying, that it needs to, I think age is like a big factor when it comes to picking up talent. So like if we had like a better structure, that would definitely help, because here you don't know what tournaments are going to happen at the start of the year. You don't know when the tournaments are going to happen. As an individual and as a player, you can't train throughout the year. Obviously you're going to get lazy at some point, your body's going to need rest at some point, and also you need that motivation, you need something to look forward to. So like personally as well, like it's only when we realize that there's a tournament that you start working out, and then you know start training and things like that. And the thing is, like, we only get to know very last minute, like even nationals tryouts, and I've got like 2 days notice to come to Bombay for a nationals tryouts. And it's like that in most states. And at least when you're younger as well, it's not like you have that much information. Here now that we know most of the people and you're connected, and you know who to follow up with and who to call and who to ask in advance. Even then in advance means you'll still know probably a couple of weeks in advance, not more than that. So how do you set up like this whole structure where you have scouts coming in from across the country, and how do you get the players to like be at that level at that point when the scouts are coming in? That's what the tough part is. And I'm sure, like, I'm not saying it's impossible to do, but I'm saying there's definitely like some more work that needs to be done. And even now, if without anything you do manage to get some kind of scouts and some kind of people looking into how the girls in India are performing, I'm sure there is some kind of talent as well here. And I know, like, for a lot of countries, it's also a visa thing that becomes an issue of, like, getting players to play for that or play in that particular country. So that's something that is another barrier, obviously. And yeah, mainly I think that it's not impossible, but it definitely needs like some work on our end as well to make that happen.
Yeah, it's not it's not a movie. You can't do $1 million arm for football. It's not happening, unfortunately enough. And even if I don't think if it happened, it would be a fortunate thing to begin with, because you need more structure. But Hiba, just to clarify, because this kind of blows my mind. You're saying that even if your school does have a women's like girls football team, the best like age category you're getting is up to under 15. So any girl over the age of like say 15 or 17 in some schools is going to have to play in a senior tournament. Is that what you?
Yeah, I think there is, like, now after I've stopped playing, there has been like the Khelo India, which was introduced, which is at a university level. Plus, like, ZPs happen, and like the school tournaments happen, which is inter-school, where you represent your school when you're in 11th, 12th, and like university as well. There are university, like inter-university that happens, which is like West Zone, and all four states, like all states in that particular zone play a tournament. And then there's an all India which happens. So like for Maharashtra, they would come in the West Zone. There's a North, South, and East zone. So each zone has their tournament, and then there's an all India tournament. So there is one thing that happens through the year. But for that, again, like you said, after you're 16, 17, you have to go to a college that has a football team, like a girls football team, or say a good level at least, if you want to continue playing. Otherwise, then you play at a senior level, which is an open category.
It is funny. It is such a big contrast now that I think, especially when since coming here, I mean, I'll be honest, and I can probably take some blame for this, is that, I didn't really follow women's football when I was in India. And it's funny when you move to the US, because you have people like Megan Rapinoe and Abby Wambach and Alex Morgan, who are really so championed in the US. And credit, because I mean, the US women's team is so dominant. Whereas there probably just is, I think we can all do more. I can totally take blame in India. I don't follow, Indian sports. And it probably starts with, like you said, an all-round effort to start, like, increasing increasing viewership to it. But Hiba, I didn't want to ask you, you talked a little bit about your background with coaching, as well as working in sponsorship. So you've kind of tackled, you've been on the playing side, coaching side, you've also been on the sponsorship side, and you talked a little bit about how your motivation is kind of bringing in the facilities and infrastructure to Indian players, women, men's, across the span of sports in India. Where do you kind of want to go next? What are the areas you want to tackle? Are you looking to maybe get a additional licensing in coaching? Are you looking to maybe broadening how sponsorship works? What are some of your views for things that you'd like to expand on in India, things you'd like to work on in India?
Okay, serious questions now. Reflect on my future.
Oh, it's not a job interview, so open.
Through you, question.
No, we're on team Hiba here. If we can help in some way, we'd be happy to as well.
Yeah.
It's more for us as well, in a way where we are trying to get some enlightenment to find a way, right? And because now we have a platform, so we're trying to use it.
And it's also like we're trying to learn, because we also want to grow sports in India, and we don't really we're kind of saying, we say that and we kind of say that, but we don't know exactly what you're in the space to kind of know what are the areas specifically. So more broadly, just that.
I think coaching was just like something I wanted. I know like the whole process of getting all your licenses takes a really long time, because like I mentioned, you need to have like a gap between each license to have like certain work experience and like a little bit of coaching experience. It's not like I could tomorrow decide that I want to become a coach and I'll finish all my A license in a year or 2 years, like getting a degree, So I know it's going to take some time. So that's why ideally I started with the D license and, did my C license. But I think coaching, there's still some time for that. Like I did it for a short period. I enjoyed it for sure. But I think I just want to play for a few more years at least. And so definitely I think continuing and playing for a few more years as much as I can at like the national, like representing your state as well as IWL. That is what I want to do. And in terms of work, yeah, for sure, like I feel like there's still a lot of aspects and areas in which I can probably help in developing the sport. So I think especially women's football, I haven't done enough in terms of what I feel like I can do. So I definitely want to see what, like you said, that you don't know exactly what to do to help, So I think in terms of, there's still like at whatever level I can, the clubs that I play for and the people I know personally, when they require, say, some kind of money to run women's clubs, try and get them sponsors and, help out in whatever way I can. But ideally to do something way bigger than that, like probably, figure out a way to, make a difference and talk about all the shortcomings that I was mentioning earlier. Having clubs give better facilities to girls as well, try and fill those gaps and develop the women's football way more.
We definitely need that. So thank you. That's a great thing to work on. It's definitely something we need for sure.
So finally, just to wrap up, Hiba, one last question. Who is the one footballer, women's footballer in India, maybe, that you would say is the one to watch out for, or or some people should keep an eye on? And in general, who is your footballing inspiration? Man or woman, doesn't really matter. So those two things, and then we can just wrap up.
It's really hard to pick one. I don't really have like one favorite as such. And
okay, Hiba, which position do you play? I think based on that, I think that then we can target that question accordingly.
Help you find who you are inspired by.
I play right wing, but yeah, like I think in terms of like in Indian footballers, at least, I think Bala Devi was one person that was great. She's actually playing in the UK right now. So from the Indian women's team, definitely she would stand out. And I think I did work on the under 17 that took place in India as well before the World Cup. What they had done was they organized this tournament with 4 girls teams, and I think I saw a few girls that I had never seen play before, and there were quite a few girls that were playing so well. And I can't remember all their names because I don't know them personally. But like Avika, and she's from Delhi, some girl. And I don't know any of these girls personally, but there were definitely like 2-3 players that was so great to look at. And even I'm sure like the national team as well has a lot of players. I'm just not able to pick one.
Okay, Ronaldo or
my
Messi?
apologies.
Hiba, finally. That's why,
Why did I
Shubham.
feel like this question was going to come?
Because you didn't pick a favorite, so I had to put you on the spot.
Yeah, exactly what I mean. Like, I cannot pick one. I don't get how people are like one player is better than the other. Like, they're both great. Like
It's
Ronaldo
not
for
about
sure.
better. It's about favorites. It's not about better.
I think Ronaldo. Like, I think because I followed him right from
Let's go.
while I was growing
Hiba,
up.
you've become my favorite football coach now. Now that you said Ronaldo.
If you can tell, those are the two United fans, by the way. If you couldn't tell already.
But yeah, I think I followed him right from when I just started playing football. And I think in the start, I felt like, he wasn't that great. But for sure, like the amount of hard work that he
Quickly
put
cover
in.
up, quickly cover up, quickly cover up.
The amount of hard work he put in, and in general, like I've been following him, even though I don't watch a lot of football anymore. I've just seen like how much he's grown as a player, and even at that level, there's still scope to like grow and become better. So it's kind of been great. But Messi's great too. Like I like the style of football he plays, where it's more like passing, and he's definitely very talented. Yeah.
Yeah, so Hiba, firstly, thank you so much for sharing all these insights about let be your time in the UK, the football experience, all these certifications that you've got, and obviously everything that you're doing in the sports industry. It's absolutely mind blowing. So thank you for that. To all our viewers and listeners, please do share, like, comment, subscribe. You'll know the drill. Also, please hit the bell icon in YouTube so that you all are notified for every episode that drops. And thank you so much, Hiba. It was a pleasure talking to you. We shall see you guys again next week with an all new episode. Bye. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.